remove the racial inequalities that historically have prevented Black and Brown families, and youth in particular, from fulfilling their potential. These are a few of her roles: CEO of Baltimore City Public Schools, Chief of Staff to the Mayor of Baltimore, President of Bridge EDU, Executive Director of the Mayor's Office of Children and Family Success. Secretary Edwards has grown organizations, restructured systems for maximum impact, and managed multi-million-dollar budgets. In fall of 2021, she left City Hall to serve as the Chief of Staff to the Maryland gubernatorial campaign for Wes Moore, who ran on a pledge to ensure an equal opportunity at success for all Maryland families. After winning the election, Governor Moore named Tisha Edwards his Secretary of Appointments, and she now leads the work of making appointments to Maryland's 600 boards and commissions, all while advancing the Moore-Miller administration's mandate to expand representation in the state government and to leave no one in Maryland behind. It is with great pleasure that I introduce you all to Secretary Edwards. Her and I served together on the board at the Family League of Baltimore City. It was great working with her in a nonprofit space. With no further ado, Secretary Edwards, welcome to the Women's Conference.
Thank you so much, Nancy. Really appreciate you having me here today, and thank you to the rest of the Accenture team for pulling together such a phenomenal opportunity for women to share and grow together. It is a real honor to join this group of amazing women at all different stages of their leadership journey, and in their work to make our state, our cities, and our community stronger. I'm going to talk a little bit about my personal leadership journey. I hope to leave time for question and answer. So if there's anyone in the audience who does have questions, I'm looking forward to engaging more directly in some of your thoughts and wondering. So please feel free to use the chat, and we'll circle back on the questions at the end of my remarks. I really am excited about the fact that we're taking time today to elevate women, to amplify women, and to empower women. It's a true honor for me to follow today's speakers. Many of them are my colleagues, and all are public servants leading with courage and conviction to do right by Marylanders. You know, my career has been about people and purpose. I love serving my community. I'm particularly passionate about women, and I care very deeply, as Nancy said, about children of color and their families. So I feel very much at home here today as we come together to focus on the future of women in leadership, and how we as human beings can come together and have some successes, but also to talk very frankly about our untapped potential to make our state one where every individual has access to opportunity and resources, and where everyone has a voice and a platform to help shape their future. Giving voice to others really starts with finding your own voice, which is really about your own individual purpose, your why. I'd like to share with you a little bit about my why and my personal journey and what propels me forward into this career that I have today, where I am doing something I never thought was possible, and that's serving as Secretary of Appointments for Governor Wes Moore, the first Black governor for the state of Maryland, only the third in this country's history. So let me start from the beginning. And the beginning for me is in Mississippi, where I was born to a very young mother, but she had very high aspirations for me. I guess today we would call her a teenage mom. She had me when she was a senior in high school. My father, who was her classmate, lived most of his teenage years and his adult years addicted to drugs. So it took a lot of people for me to show up and be the person that I am today. Going to college was really hard for me. I failed at it twice. So I really, really understand the transition and the challenges that many young people face from high school to college and career. I have firsthand knowledge of how important it is to make sure our systems and structures meet the needs of our most vulnerable community members and families and stakeholders. It took me a couple of times to get it right, not because I didn't have the aptitude, I just didn't have the resources. I didn't get my bachelor's degree until I was 28 years old. And I was a mother of a 5-year-old when I moved to Maryland to go to law school. For 20 plus years, my passion has been about removing racial inequities that have historically prevented Black and Brown families, and particularly youth, from filling their potential. This has steered me through a range of public and private sector roles, as Nancy referenced, and that passion has kept me steady, focused not on the moment or isolated agendas, but on the big possibilities and the big picture. So my journey from Mississippi to Maryland, that lived experience became the big thing that propelled me educationally and pushed me into trying to figure out how to engage in working for the public. When I moved to Baltimore as a young mother, that's when I really hit my stride. It's when it became clear to me that the straightest path for me to opportunity was through education. So that really helps you to kind of understand the foundation, how I got here. And once you know and kind of can reflect on that journey, our own individual journeys, that's when we start to understand our why. And that's how, in my opinion, you start to grow your voice, your leadership voice. We have to learn how to channel all of the experiences that we've had, good and bad, into clarity about why we do what we do, who we are doing it for, and how do we pour all of those experiences into the leaders of tomorrow. Throughout my leadership journey, I've witnessed the power of diverse voices and perspectives. When we own our own voices, we create an environment where everyone feels empowered to contribute, where ideas flow freely, and where the richness of diversity becomes a driving force for excellence. The Moore-Miller Cabinet is really a great example of distinct voices coming together to drive transformational change. And it really exemplifies what this administration is about and the work that we are trying to achieve every single day. As the appointment secretary, I have had the honor of leading the work to build Governor Moore's cabinet. And it was a really intentional undertaking. The governor had a very clear mandate. He wanted to have the most diverse and most qualified cabinet in the state's history. He wanted exceptional leaders. He wanted us to have a leadership cabinet who really believed in excellence. And he also wanted diversity. And he was clear that we could have all of these things. We just needed to be intentional and we needed to have the willingness to do this. This is really important for me because I didn't really understand when I became his Secretary of Appointments what role that I would play in kind of setting the stage for leadership for the state of Maryland, and particularly women in leadership. And so although I had this passion for it and I had this job that the governor had asked me to take on, I really didn't understand how these two things were going to converge together. And, that's how the universe works. Sometimes you don't understand it. You just got to go with it, which is what I did. And ultimately, we brought together an extraordinarily powerful cabinet. As I said, you've heard from some of my colleagues today. But what I'm really proud of is that 50% of the governor's cabinet are women, and 29% of those women are women of color. And what makes me excited about that is that I know if I had not been at the table and if I had not been driving this agenda, then that cabinet could have looked very different. You have, as I said, talked to some of our cabinet secretaries, but I do want to call out very specifically, as you know, Lieutenant Governor Aruna Miller, first woman of color to be elected as the Lieutenant Governor for the state of Maryland, which is huge. Our Secretary of Disabilities, Secretary of Aging, Secretary of Information and Technology, Secretary of Budget and Management, Secretary of Health, Secretary of Planning, Secretary of Public Safety and Corrections, Secretary of Labor, Secretary of Environment, and Secretary of State, and Secretary of the Appointments, all women. And so that really speaks to how, I had this kind of journey that I was on for a very long time. Kind of converges with this opportunity to serve the state of Maryland and to really put women in some of the most powerful and influential positions to lead policy and to lead funding on behalf of our governor and the residents of Maryland. So getting back a little bit to this notion of finding your own voice, which can be really, really hard. It takes, from my perspective, confidence and resilience. Confidence is about embracing uncertainty and stepping into the unknown with the belief that you can learn and adapt. Resilience is the armor that shields you from your setbacks. It's the ability to take risk, to make mistakes, to fall down, to bounce back stronger and more determined than before. When you build strong self-belief and confidence, you gain clarity about your values and your beliefs, and you begin to live those values in everything that you do. That, to me, is about finding your voice. That deep self-belief that eventually becomes resilience. That resilience will not stop fear. I tell everybody I'm always afraid. It does not stop disappointment. It does not stop hurt, even when things don't work out. That is the part of the beauty of being a human being. What confidence and resilience do together is to keep you hopeful. And we can't lead without courage and a whole lot of support. Leading is not something that we do by ourselves. We draw the courage it takes to lead from others. I've been drawing on the same people throughout my career. I'm super, super lucky to have an extraordinary group of women that I confide in, that I give my counsel to when they need me. And these are also women that allow me to be very vulnerable, and they help me to push through my fears. There are the women in my family, my friends, my teachers, colleagues, and mentors. The women who have consistently modeled leadership for me, who have high expectations for me and hold me to the highest possible standards. They have nurtured me and given me very tough love when I needed it. They have taught me to love the person I am and to know that I am valued. They have made sure I never stop reaching. Without this community of women, I would not be here with you today. Lastly, our leadership journey is not just how do we become leaders, it's about how we lead. And everything we've talked about today rolls up into our ability and responsibility to lift others up as leaders. As women in leadership, it is up to us to open the doors for other women. Coming back to owning our voice, it's about owning our voice so we can give voice to others. For me, positioning others to lead has taken on many forms over the course of my career, and my current role has probably been the most unexpected of them all. A year ago, the idea of serving as the Secretary of Appointments was baffling to me. Why would I do that? How could I possibly align my career with people and purpose to this role that the governor has presented to me? But as I've explained, as I said, the universe kind of puts you where you need to be to do the things that you love to do. And so here I am a year later talking to you about how proud I am of all of the women that I've had the opportunity to support, but also women that I've had the opportunity to position and to ensure that they're in positions of power and influence and that they're getting the support that they need. So in closing, I encourage all of you incredible women to find your own voice, to draw on the people who love and support you, to lead with confidence in community. And once you walk through the doors of opportunity, to hold those doors open for others. Thank you so much for having me. And if we have a few minutes, I'm happy to take questions and answers. Thank you.
Wow, Tisha, that was amazing. I was taking copious notes while you were talking. And one thing, so many things stood out, but one thing in particular that stood out that I would love for you to just talk a little bit more, especially in your role, you talked about positioning others to lead. I think, as women, sometimes it's difficult for us to make sure that we leave a pathway for others to come behind or walk with us or just really put folks in position. Can you talk a little bit more about how you've positioned others to lead?
So I think it's really important, there's, first of all, there's enough work for everybody. So, I've kind of tried to be in places and spaces personally and professionally to meet really great people that have a real commitment to service. And so I'm always making myself available to folks to understand what it is that they consider their superpower, how it is they want to spend their time, talent, and treasure. And then I kind of try to play the role of connector. And I think anybody who's had an opportunity to work with me personally or professionally will tell you that because I've been in all of these places and spaces for such a very long time, I'm very good at saying, oh, I think you should know this person, or have you thought about getting involved in this? Or I hear that there's an opportunity coming available. How can I help you, be ready for this opportunity? So it's just something that comes very natural to me, Nancy. And as I said, like I work with my hands open, as my mother said.
I
And
like
so I
that.
think when you work with your hands open to people, then it opens you up to also be blessed with lots of opportunity.
Mhm. That's a really good quote. We'll take that one down too. You have so much on your plate with this new position, and you're involved in so many incredible programs and agencies. How do you balance? And this is a trick question. How do you balance your career, your personal life, your passions? Is there a thing? Is there such thing as balance?
There is, and it gets better over time. So
Okay.
I proudly tell everybody I'm 50 plus years old. I've been doing this a very long time. And so what I say to women is you don't have to do everything now. It's a marathon. And there are times in your life, you're in school, your children are young, your family needs you, you have to take care of your parents. There is absolutely nothing wrong with kind of dialing back and modulating your professional responsibilities based on other commitments that you have in your life. And I think this generation of women leaders are going to do much better at this than what I did in the previous generation. But I think what's really important is people should own their time. They should modulate their time. And, I think, this whole, I think people talk about FOMO a lot. We have to get out of that. And I think social media drives that. You need to have a work-life balance that works for you. And know that things that you might want to do today, it's okay if you say, look, I've got to wait until my kids are older, or I've got to get better at some basic things in my career. And so work-life balance is really also about finding your voice. And it's not feeling like if you're not doing everything, and if you're not doing everything everybody else is doing, then you're going to miss out on something, because that's what I would tell my 20, 30, 40-year-old self. There is plenty to do, and there's plenty of time to do it. Get your rest, take care of yourself, and you'll catch up on the back end.
That is very good. And I am struggling today with fighting off a cold, and taking a break is very important. Can you speak to imposter syndrome?
Yeah, I talk about that a lot because the reality is I think everybody suffers with that a little bit. And I do at times. Sometimes I'm more confident than others. It depends on the settings. But there are absolutely times when I walk in rooms and I'm like, do I belong here? Am I good enough? Am I prepared? Do I have all of the things to be kind of valued in this setting? And one thing, Governor Moore, I've known him for a very long time. He says, any room that you're in, you're supposed to be in. That's, period. And so I have to remind myself that. But the reality is, I don't know anyone that doesn't finish an event or a project and doesn't turn to the person next to them and say, how did I do? Right? Who needs affirmation, who needs someone to tell them that they're doing okay. So I think imposter syndrome is something that everyone faces at different points in their career. And even today, I find myself in settings where I have to give myself a pep talk and remind myself that I do deserve to be in the room and that I have something of value to offer the conversation.
Very good. We have another question from someone in the audience. This is really interesting. This person's daughter is about to graduate. What guidance would you give someone starting out in their career?
A couple of things. I think we all have to be comfortable with relationship building. I think whatever career you're in, the sciences, the business, the nonprofit, the government, at the end of the day, it's all about relationships. And so talking to your daughter about how are you building your professional network, that doesn't mean you have to run and be the president of something. That doesn't mean that you have to take on more than what you're ready for, but you have to get comfortable meeting people. You have to get comfortable developing relationships because those relationships, those people are going to be real assets for you as you build your career. So, your daughter's graduating from college, so she's already doing a lot of great things, right? So now is helping her and guiding her around the business of relationship building and getting to know people in your profession, out of your profession, and just putting yourself out there. And that can be hard to do. It's hard for me when someone says, let's go to a networking dinner. I'm always the person standing in the corner, drinking the water by myself and looking for someone that I already know so that I can go talk to that person first. And then usually that person can introduce me to someone I don't know. So I understand how hard that can be and that it doesn't come natural to everyone. And so I would say to my daughter, let's get you really comfortable with just meeting people. And that comes with confidence, that comes with a little practice, but relationships are the name of the game.
Very good. Thank you so much. We have come to the end of our keynote. I want to say thank you so much, Secretary Edwards, for joining us today. This has been great. You've given us many nuggets of wisdom that we will carry throughout the rest of the afternoon.
All right. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And thank you for creating this forum for other women leaders. We need it.
Thanks so much. So I want to thank everyone for attending our inaugural Women in Public Service Leadership Summit for the state of Maryland. Today has been great with President Bro from Bowie State University, our fireside chat with Secretary Portia Wu from Department of Labor, our comptroller, Brooke Learman, and Wanda Gibson, the CIO from Prince George's County, where we learned how to find our voice, our session with Dr. Sobers and Chrissy Nizer, the administrator of Maryland Vehicle Administration, and our roundtable with Kenyatta Powers, CIO at DHS, Chief Administrative Officer Stacy Rogers, who had a few technical difficulties, but she was with us in spirit. Also, Secretary Katie Savage from the Maryland Department of Information Technology. We just had great